Hey everybody, I'm Nathaniel Dodson from tutvid.com. Welcome into this Adobe Illustrator tutorial, where today we're going to take a look at creating this very cool looking 3D retro text. It's a specific request I got from a piece of artwork over on Behance. I will try to find the piece of artwork again and make sure I link it down in the bio so you can all check out the original artist's amazing work. But I've kind of taken and tweaked it maybe just a little bit, and we're going to make this effect right here, right now, in Adobe Illustrator. Let's get started. Alrighty, so here we are in Adobe Illustrator. This obviously is the text effect, but I'm going to go to my my new document here. It's just a blank document. The size of the document, by the way, is 2560 by 1440. If I come up here to new, you can see there it is, 2560 by 1440. That's what I'm using. Now, we're going to begin. I've got over here in the layers, this is actually going to be my background layer. So let's create the background first and foremost. Grab the rectangle tool, click a single time, and set the width to 2560 and the height to 1440. Hit OK. We now have a gradient that is the same size as our background. Next, what I'll do is come over here to the bottom of my toolbar, and I'll just select the stroke and hit that little slash icon to get rid of the stroke. And we'll come up here to Window, open up the Align panel. It's hiding right down here. I'll just drag it over and pop it in here with my gradient panel, and we'll just align this bad boy to the horizontal and vertical centers of our artboard just like that. Now, we do want to fill this with a gradient, so let's select the gradient panel, and just click on the gradient thumbnail. Now, I made a little rookie mistake, and that is I still had the stroke selected, so it's applying that gradient to the stroke. I don't want that. We're once again going to hit none, then we will select the fill. There we go. Apply a gradient. Now, I have these colors over here, and our background is going to go from this light sort of tealish blue to the darker tealish blue. So I'm just going to drag that swatch, drop it on the white, and then I'm going to drag the darker green and drop it on the black swatch. Now, if you're looking for the hexadecimal codes for these, you can look up to the color panel, but you want to hit that little flyout menu and just go RGB, and then you've got your little hexadecimal code there. So the darker green is 00B2B1, and the lighter green is A2DBDF, if you're following along. And then we're going to set the angle of this to -90. So that's going to put the light at the top, the dark at the bottom. It looks great. Next, we're going to grab our black arrow selection tool here, and we're going to copy this shape, go Edit, Copy, and then we're just going to go Edit, Paste in front. So if we open up our layer over here, we have two of these teal rectangles, what am I thinking? So I'm going to select the topmost rectangle, and we're going to fill it with a black to white gradient again. So over in our swatches panel, which is right here. It'll be different for your workspace. I'll get the default black to white gradient. There we go. What I want to do here is drag the white slider to the middle of the gradient and add another slider over here. And we're just going to fill this with black. So I can actually just double click on that little slider and hit black just like that. And then maybe even use my little controlling points here just to push black to the very top and bottom of my gradient. And then we're going to go Effect, Texture, and choose Grain. We just want to apply some nice grain to this. And you can see we've got this big dialog box that appears. In fact, I'll just zoom this out a little bit so we can see what this is going to look like. There's our grain. I'm going with an intensity of, maybe I'll push it up a little bit. Let's go with like 25. Contrast of 0. And this is important. We're going with the stippled grain type. I'm going to hit OK. It's going to apply the grain. You're going to see it'll take a little second. But once it's applied, we're going to come over here in the new properties panel for CC 2018, and we're going to select opacity. This would be your transparency panel if you're using an older version of Illustrator. We're going to set this to multiply, and that's going to drop all the white away. And then we're going to just change. We're going to change the opacity here to like 35. Just give it a second to drop it away. We'll change the opacity to about 35%, and it'll just give us a nice little texture on our background. I'm going to deselect that. All right, now we're ready to apply some type. So I'm going to select that layer, just collapse it. I'm going to select between the eyeball and the blue bar. Click there. It's going to lock the layer so we don't accidentally move or damage it. And we'll create a new layer for our text. Grab the text tool here. And I'm just going to type out probably a capital E. That'll be the easiest and fastest letter. No, you know what? Let's do the letter Z because let's do something that's a little challenging. We're going to undo this real quick. I'm just going to type out a capital Z. And I can hold down my Shift key and I can scale this up a little bit larger so you can see it. But we're going to make our big changes to the text down here in the character panel where I'm going to choose from my fonts. And I'm just going to go with a somewhat standard font, League Spartan Bold. You should be able to download it free at a website like fontsquirrel.com. And I'm going to go with bold, of course. And then I'm going to set it to a size of, I think, 850 is probably going to be nice and big. Yep, there we go. I'll drag it to about the middle of my artwork. Now, the reason I'm going with Z and not E is pretty straightforward. It's just a bunch of straight lines for the 3D. Z has some angular stuff, so it's a little bit more complex, but not quite as complex as the roundedness of the letter D. But we'll talk about how to get that kind of rounded 3D effect when we start building the sides of our shape, which we're going to get to in just a minute here. But what I want to do first and foremost is select the type, right-click on it, and choose Create Outlines. And then I'm going to fill it here with this yellow color in my color panel, or my swatches panel here. And you can see in our color panel, this is F2CE1A. Again, if you're following along, let's now copy and basically duplicate this letter. So we'll go Edit Copy. And I'm going to choose Edit Paste in Back because we want this to be beneath our original Z in the layer stack. See, the Z on the bottom is the one that's selected, right? It's got the red square next to it. Hold down Shift and hit your down arrow key 1, 2, 3 times. And then with Shift still held down, hit the right arrow key 1, 2, 3 times. Great. So we've got this second Z. I'm going to choose some random color, maybe like a bright pink, to place beneath it just so we have contrast. We can really see what's going on here. Now what we're going to do is go up here to View and make sure we have Smart Guides turned on. This is going to make this so much easier here, what we're about to do if you turn your Smart Guides on. Grab the pen tool here. You don't even really need to know how to use the pen tool because we're not going to create any curves. I'm going to zoom in on the letter Z here. And all we want to do is hover over. You can see how it's saying, yep, there's an anchor point there. Yeah, we want to click that because we want our line to go from anchor point to anchor point, just like that. Then we're going to bring it over, and you can see there it's saying intersect. That's exactly where the paths intersect. Yep, we'll click there again, and then we want to bring it up to this corner where the anchor would be, and then back across to the anchor. So we just created a shape here. If I change the color of it to blue, this is going to be sort of that side wall, right? If I go look and reference, we just created that little piece of our 3D lettering. So that's pretty cool. We're going to get to that angle in just a minute because that's going to be sort of the more complex shape, if you will. Now we'll do this here, the same thing. We'll go anchor to anchor. Whoop, let me just make sure I'm actually on the anchor. There we go. We'll pull this all the way across to this corner, and then we're going to cut it off right here. Make sure we get the anchor, and then pull this all the way back across. Great, so that's one side, and then we want to do this end cap part of the Z as well. Just bring this down, bring it over, connect it. Great. And now what we want to do is the angular part of the Z. Now, we're not going to go from corner to corner for this part of the Z. We're going to select and start on that anchor, hold down Shift, so we're coming straight down, and wait until Smart Guides tell us we're intersecting with that path right there. And then we'll bring this all the way down, and now it's just a matter of linking up with all the other anchor points, just like so. All right, great. We've created the 3D sides for our text. Now I have two more colors here in our color scheme, and these sort of red bricky colors, those are the colors for the sides of our shape. So I can select the two bottom pieces. That's going to be the darkest of red. So I'll select that, and you can see the hexadecimal code is 991B1E for these. The side is going to be the lighter of the bricky colors, and that is an F1 584A color. And this kind of long side here, this is going to be a gradient. So we're going to run this from the dark down here at the bottom, or I'm sorry, the dark is going to be up at the top down to the bright down here on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and add the gradient, and I think my initial thought was correct because the bottom part of the angle is more like the bottom than the top is. So we'll drag this darker red, drop it on the white point, then we'll drag the light red, drop it on the black point, and we just have a nice gradient that runs, side to side. We could adjust the angle and try to make it perfect if we wanted, but I kind of think it just sort of works the way it is. Now, we're not ready to get rid of that pink Z quite yet because we need to draw the sort of the inner 3D shapes as well, and we're going to use that same piece of Z to do that. So we're going to do that here by using this underlying pink Z. And notice when I bring this up, we have some lines, right? We've got this line that runs on the inside of the Z up here on the top, right? And if we go reference our original file, sure enough, we're building sort of this interior wall right along there. Okay, that's interesting. And we also have this bit here. We can trace that. And we also have this bit down here that we can trace. So we're going to use this line. Now, we need to be careful doing this because we sort of have to, find that line. We sort of have to poke around in the dark, so to speak, to find where this underlying Z is. So let's grab our pen tool. We're going to begin up here with the easy one, and I'll move around. You can see Smart Guides is telling me, yep, there's an anchor right there. Great. And then I can bring this straight down, and right there we intersect. Great. I can bring this right over. There's an anchor point there. Boom. Cool. And I have the first shape. Easy peasy, just like that. We're going to come over here. We got an anchor point there, and you can see, there we go. We're intersecting the path just like that. And this will be easy. We have the fresh anchor point right there, and of course another anchor point in the top corner, and then join that path right off. Great. The path here, whoop, I don't want to add another path. The path over here, that one, we're going to have to come straight down from the top anchor point. So let me select the underlying Z and get an idea once more. So we're going to bring it straight down from there to there. So I'll select here, hold down Shift, come straight down slowly, and there we go. Smart Guides is going to say you're intersecting exactly there. And then I'm going to bring this over, and I'm still going to kind of hunt around for where that intersection is. and it's right there. So I'll click, and then I'll bring this out, attached to that anchor point, and voila, we create that shape. Now over here, we're going to begin at this anchor point, and we're going to look around for the piece right in there. Is that where it was? Looks like it is. Hold down Shift, come over here, there's the intersection, there's that anchor point, and there we go. So if I zoom out now, we've created the inner sides, if you will, of our letter Z. At this point, honestly, we can take this pink Z that we were working with behind everything and just delete it. We're done with it. I want to jump in here and let you guys know that I have an Instagram feed that you should be following, @TutVid. Go over there and follow me, but more importantly, if you are following along with this tutorial and you complete this 3D text effect, upload it to your Instagram and tag me in the actual image, not in like the comment area, but actually tag me in the image. That way I can see it, and if I fall a few days behind, I can still come back and make sure I get to it a couple days later. The comments tend to flow by in your notifications and just sort of get swallowed up and lost, so I might miss it if you don't tag me in the image. I don't need an elaborate shout out or anything like that. Just tag me. I would love to see what you're making. Come over, give you a like, give you a comment, and start a little conversation with you. Let's get back into this tutorial and wrap this thing up. So with these inner walls, we can now take the side wall, and this is going to be the lighter sort of mustard yellow color. So I'll just select that to fill that. By the way, the hex code E5AD37. I'll select the top, hold down Shift, and I'll select the other horizontal, so the two horizontal faces. These are going to be that darker mustard color, so I'll just click on that, and the hex for that is A68238. And then the diagonal, true to the nature of the red on the outside, this will go from the darker mustard color on the bottom to the lighter on top, but we need to fill it with a gradient first. So we'll come over here to the gradient panel, click on the gradient, and I'll drag the darker mustard color. We want that to replace the white, so I'll drag it on top of the white point. And then the lighter mustard, I'll drag it over to the dark point, and there we go. We have a nice gradient. So we're beginning to really flesh out that shape. Now, I did mention at the beginning of this video, in terms of creating these sort of more difficult angles, something like this curve, what you would do is we had that pink Z. This, I would begin with the face of the D, the yellow D, and then I would duplicate it. We'd create sort of the pink D, if you will. And then I would use my Pathfinder panel, the divide feature here, and I would use that to divide it up into a bunch of shapes, and one of those shapes would be this a nice curved angle, or really just curved curve off the backside of the D. So that's how you do kind of those more advanced curved shapes. But this tutorial is going to take long enough as it is, so we're not really going to spend too much time dwelling on that. But with a little playing around, I think you'll be able to figure it out. All right, let's build sort of that double or triple border that we have going around the letters over in the preview piece. Here's how we're going to do that. I'm actually going to collapse my properties panel just a little bit here. Maybe I'll just double click on it, collapse it totally. I'm going to duplicate the original Z, so I'm just going to Command or Control C, and then I'm going to paste it in front, Command or Control F, and then I'm going to go Object, Arrange, and bring it completely to the front. It's going to hide all that 3D work we just did. Don't worry, we're gonna make sure this isn't stealing the show for too long here, because we're going to come over here and swap the fill and the stroke. So I'm going to go Swap-a-Rooski that, select the fill, or excuse me, the stroke, to bring that to the foreground. So now we're working with the stroke, and I want to fill the stroke here with sort of this beige color that I have. So all I need to do is select it. You can see it just swapped the stroke, and the hex code is FFDD99. I'm going to double click here to open the properties back up, and I want to select stroke. It's going to pop open sort of my temporary stroke panel here. I want to set this to 10 points. Now, wow, we can really see that, right? And I am going to align this to the inside. So align the stroke to the inside just like that. Now, I really should have set the fill of the stroke, not to this light. We're going to get to the light beige in a moment. I actually want to set it to the very lightest red that we have. So I'm just going to select the light red. There we go. That's the proper color for our initial stroke. Now, something interesting is happening here. The inside corners are a little bit off now. We're going to adjust that in just a second. We could have bumped our Z a little bit further and drawn it right the first time, but I'll show you how to use the direct selection tool to tweak some of the 3D edges you've got as well. It's really no big deal. But before we go any further, I want to just duplicate the stroke. So we're going to go Edit, Copy, and we're going to choose Edit, Paste in front. So we're pasting the same exact stroke in front, but we want to size the stroke down. So we're going to go with like a 5-point stroke. There we go, and it doesn't look like we made a change because we need to change the color, and now we're going to set it to that beige color. And once more, the hex code FFDD99. And you can see we're getting just this nice double stroke now. So that's kind of a cool effect. Maybe that's what you like. You want to leave this as the effect, but I want to take it a step further. And what I'm going to do here is go Object, Path, and choose to offset this path. Now, when I offset the path, it's going to automatically duplicate the path for me, so I don't need to worry about duplicating this layer. So just choose Offset Path. We'll turn the preview on here, And I think offsetting not plus 10, but I think if we go minus 10 inward, you can see how now we're getting what looks like this really cool triple border. Beige, red, beige. Really, really neat. I'm going to hit OK because I like it. And you can see here it has duplicated our path, but it's grouped them. So if I drop that down, we have 2 paths in there. That's fine. I'm going to leave them grouped. We don't really need to open it up or mess around with it too much. But let's get on these 3D sidewalls. In fact, we'll adjust all the sidewalls a little bit because they could all really be pushed inward. Let's zoom in. Remember, without the strokes, our sidewalls actually appear much taller, right? So I want to move all the sidewalls in. And remember, our stroke is 5 points, so let's think of it as 5 pixels here. 5 pixels plus 5 pixels plus 5 pixels. We need to move these bad boys 15 pixels in and over. So let's do that. Let's grab our black arrow tool. I'll begin with the piece on top here. Hold down Shift, nudge downward. That takes me down 10. And then I'll nudge down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. And I need to move it to the right. Shift to the right 1. And then without Shift, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Now look at this, we got this little bit hanging over. Well, that's easy enough. Grab your direct selection tool, select each of those anchors by holding down Shift and clicking them, and then just nudge them upward until they're hidden, just kind of like that. And you're going to have the same issue out here. That's fine, no big deal. Hold down Shift, select both anchors, and just nudge back to the left just like that. If we zoom out, you can see now this is looking nice and three-dimensional. And there we go. Now we have our insides all realigned with the new edges with our big, thick border. And it makes it look like the Z has these sort of thick walls. So did that take a little bit of time? Sure, but it's a really neat effect. Now, let's collapse the Properties panel. Hey, I want to take a quick break. If you are enjoying this tutorial and you use Photoshop, consider supporting my YouTube channel by picking up a copy of my Photoshop course. There'll be a link right up there in that top corner. You can use that link, go pick up a copy of the Photoshop course, and it helps support what we do here at tutvid.com. And if you do pick up a copy of that course, thank you so much. Let's get back to this text 3D retro goodness. Let's grab our original Z down here in the Layers panel again, and we'll go Edit. We're going to copy, and then we're going to paste this bad boy in front, and we're going to leave it down here at the bottom of our layer stack, but just in front of that Z. I want to fill this, though, with the color white, so I can come up to my color panel and just select white from the little swatch menu there. And of course, it looks like it did nothing because we're working with the stroke. So go ahead and just cancel out the stroke. Make sure you select the fill. So we're working with the fill. There we go. Fill it with white, and you can see it looks like we've done a lot of damage, but hang with me here. We're going to go Effect. We're going to go Stylize and choose Inner Glow. Now, what we're going to do here with Inner Glow is we're going to set the mode to normal. We're going to set the color to black, just solid black. The opacity, we're going to crank it to 100%. And we're going to go with like a 65 pixel blur. And when I preview this, you're going to see it's giving us this kind of crazy looking effect. That's perfect. I'm going to hit OK, and we're going to go back and apply that same grain. So go Effect, Texture, Grain, and all the settings should be there for you. The one thing I might want to do is try cranking down the intensity a little bit. I don't know. I kind of like the intensity around 25. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to let that be. And once more, we'll come up here, open the Properties panel. We're going to choose the Opacity option. This is going to open what would be the Transparency panel in earlier or older versions of Illustrator. Go Multiply for the blend mode. And we'll just reduce the opacity of this to 35%. So we're beginning to get that textured effect here on the bottom part of the letter. We still need to texturize the sides and stuff like that. We're going to do that here too. So we'll begin by grabbing the selection tool, and we want to go with the inside pieces first. So let's select, hold down Shift, select, select, and select. We've got 4 of them. We're going to copy these. You can see it's got them all selected here in our Layers panel. We'll copy all these, Edit, Copy, and we're just going to paste them right in front. And I'm going to leave them selected because what I'm going to do is go to my gradient panel. I want to fill them all with a gradient. Maybe it'd be easier here on my like original swatches panel to just go ahead and grab the black to white gradient, which is perfect. Now what I want is the black part of the gradient to be closest to sort of that yellow floor. So right here, the way it looks on this side piece, that's perfect. So what I'll do is I'll select the horizontal piece up here and hold down Shift and select the horizontal piece here. In the gradient panel, I'm going to let's go -90. There we go. The black is on the bottom with both of them. And then over here with this piece, we're going to kind of need to mess around with this. I think it's about 55 degrees. Oh, I am way off. Let's try 155. No, I'm still way off. I'm just going to hold down Shift. I'm going to nudge it upward. I'm going to nudge it downward here until it kind of flips itself over. There we go. We look like we're getting close. All right, so about -32 degrees looks like it's going to be good for us. So something like that looks good. Now we can just select all these shapes again. All right, and we can apply just en masse this grain. So we can go Apply Grain, and by hitting Apply Grain up here, it's not even going to open the dialog. It's just going to apply that same exact grain effect. With all these selected again, we can go Opacity, set this whole bit to Multiply, and just reduce the opacity of all these at once to 35%. And you can see there we go. We've textured all sort of the side walls of our Z as well now. So here's where things kind of get interesting. If you have a tablet or some way of drawing very easily, here's where you can break out the tablet to begin adding some texture and grain to the outside parts of our 3D letter. Now, if you don't have a tablet, you can just copy these shapes just like we did with the inner ones and apply the grain like that. But I'm going to grab my brush tool. In fact, I'm going to go Window and open up my brushes panel. And you're going to have a default brush here. It's this guy here. It's called like the mop brush or something like that. I'm going to double click on it to open it up. And you can see, yes, it's a bristle brush, but it is called mop. And I'm going to set the size as big as it goes, 10 millimeters. That's perfect. I'm going to hit OK. And you can see I've got this little brush action here. I'm going to set my fill color here to just black. And because of everything we just did, our opacity settings are still going to be that 35% multiply. And because of what we just did, we're going to have that multiply and 35% opacity applied to this brush automatically. Now note here, we're going to have a stroke, but I want to get rid of that. So I can select stroke. Well, I'm not going to select stroke there. I'll just select stroke here and make sure I dump it. We just want to be painting with black. And we're also going to be applying that grain automatically. So let's just go ahead and try to paint this. And you can see it's giving me the black stroke, but that's good. So we're just going to paint through here. Cool. And whoop, that's a little bit of a harsh angle. I'm just going to paint along here. This is going to kind of give us like this nice, almost organic feel. And it can be a little messy. It absolutely does not have to be perfect. You can just kind of come through and make it however you want it to be. And notice how, some of this stuff is sticking off kind of out into the middle of nowhere. Don't worry about that. We're going to fix that in just a moment. I'm going to make this a little bit darker here along the bottom. Cool. So once I have all these shapes, or all these strokes, really, it's just a path, I want to select them all over here in my Layers panel. So I'm going to double click on Properties, and I will just go ahead and begin selecting the little circle here. Hold down Shift, and I'll just go through and select all these real quick. And once I have them all selected, we want to group them so we have them for easy access later. So I'll come up here and go Object, Group. There we go. They're all contained nice and easy. And now we want to mask them. Obviously, we're going to want to mask them to just the 3D exterior outer edges of our letter. So let's go ahead and select those shapes first. We got 4 of them here. So select that circle, hold down Shift, and select all of the others. And we're going to copy these. So we're going to go Edit Copy because we're going to use them in a mask. We're going to come up here and select the Z shape, or the sort of Z shadowy shape. Double click to open up Properties again and select Opacity. Again, this is the transparency panel for those of us not in CC 2018. And we'll just double click this little thumbnail to apply the mask. Now, clipping is turned on, which is perfect. You can see it makes everything go away. Great. We're going to go Edit. You can see we don't have an option to paste in place, but that just seems to be something that, that Illustrator does now. You're going to hit Command or Control F. And you're going to be able to paste that right in place. You may have to hit Command or Control F twice, but it's going to paste those shapes right in place. Now, the grain painting that we did is not coming through very strong because the fill of our shapes is this mixture of red gradients and red colors. So with the fill selected, we got the fill selected here, we want to just make sure this is filled with white. And you can see there we go, all that darkening and sort of shading that we just created, it's all going to come back for us there. So whether or not something like grain is even necessary for this brush, it could probably be debated, but it works out well in the end. I'm going to come back here to my opacity panel and just choose to get back to my original artwork. I'm going to collapse the properties. And you can see just a quick before and after. It just adds a really nice touch of depth to the letters. And of course, you could go and reduce the opacity a little bit more if you felt like it needed to be after the fact. Now, the last thing that I'm going to do is select the bottom, the original Z, the bottommost Z, with the outer 3D edges. I don't need to worry about the inner 3D edges for this step. So just all these pieces. It should be 5 pieces for the letter Z. And we're going to copy this yet again. So we're going to edit, copy, and then we're going to paste this in front. Don't worry if it starts looking weird. We're going to fill this with the color white because we really don't need it to be any other color. And we're going to go Object Transform, and Object Arrange, and bring this to the front. It's going to kind of cover everything up. If we move up to the top, we have all these white shapes that we can't really see. That's fine, don't worry. We're going to go to the Pathfinder panel here, and we're going to choose to merge all these shapes. So we're going to merge them. There we go. We have now one giant shape, and we're going to apply just a simple black to white gradient to this. I'm going to go to my gradient panel. I'm going to set it to like, I don't know, 65 degrees or so, something like that. Well, I actually want to swap the foreground and background color, so I'll hit the little reverse gradient option because I want the black to be down here in the bottom left corner for this case. I'm going to move the white in a little bit to just constrain. It's going to be to constrain the grain a little bit, keep it away from that top corner a little bit more, and maybe I'll expand the black out of this bottom corner a little more, maybe something like that. That looks cool. And up here we can just go Effect and apply that same exact grain we've been applying. So apply the grain to this. You can see there it is. And of course, at this point, we'll go to the Properties panel, go Opacity, go Multiply, and then just reduce this. You can see this is just overall grain. I'll probably reduce this to like 25%, a little bit lower than our 35% we've been using, but this is just like a nice blending grain that you're going to have overall. I can close my brushes panel now. I can just make sure I deselect everything. I can even close my little swatches panel, get rid of my all my panels for a quick second, and here is our 3D letter Z, and this of course is an effect that you can apply to any letter, any series of words that you want. And when you're just going through doing it, trust me, it doesn't take quite as long as it took us to explain, over 25, 30 minutes here in this tutorial, whatever it was. But it's a really, really cool looking effect, and I'm so super pumped for the person that sent in and suggested this tutorial. Whoever that was, thank you so much. But for working here in Adobe Illustrator with the pen tool and with some grain and texturizing and colors and building out this sort of, pseudo 3D, you could almost say isometric type text effect. That's it. Get it, got it, good. Nathaniel Dodson, tutvid.com. I'll catch you in the next one. And before you go, make sure you subscribe to my channel for more great tutorials every day. Also, buy my course. It helps us do what we do, and this channel is supported by viewers just like you. You can also just click the thumbnail and watch another video from this channel. See you next time, guys.